Budokai Tenkaichi 4 was officially revealed during this year's Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour, and one of the biggest things people have been talking about is the game's roster. What kind of characters will we see? Will there be new transformations? And more importantly, will it have more characters than Budokai Tenkaichi 3, which had a total of 98 characters and 161 forms? Up until Xenoverse 2 and its constant release of DLC, Tenkaichi 3 held the record for the most fighters in a Dragon Ball game, with characters from the original Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and even Dragon Ball GT, but that was 16 years ago. Since then, we've gotten things like Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Heroes, and tons of new characters that were introduced in recent video games, so Tenkaichi 4 has a lot of new material that it can pull from when making a roster, and it could possibly be the biggest one that we've ever seen. So today, I wanted to take a look at some of those new characters that could possibly make it into Tenkaichi 4, but there's so much potential for this to be the biggest Dragon Ball game ever, I can't just make it a top 10 list. There's too many characters to pick from, and honestly, I want to see them all. So instead of restricting myself, I'm going to break this video down by story arcs and go over important characters from each of them, so let's get right into it. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Like I said, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 had a massive selection of characters, and because it was the third installment of the series, that large roster was built up from the rosters of the previous two Tenkaichi games. Currently, we don't have much information on Tenkaichi 4, but we do know that it's a direct continuation of the previous three installments, so it's likely that it's going to pick up where Tenkaichi 3 left off with a few changes here and there. And I'm sure everyone can agree with me when I say this, but it would be perfect if Tenkaichi 4 brought back all of those characters we saw in Tenkaichi 3 and started adding new ones from there. Of course, 98 characters is a lot to start out with, but it's not impossible to bring them all back. At least, not all at once. Back when Tenkaichi 3 released, the concept of DLC wasn't really a thing, and games came fully packaged on systems that couldn't handle bigger and more powerful games that kept being updated. But times have changed, and not only are consoles getting more powerful and bigger games are being made, DLC has been a tactic used to keep games alive for longer periods of time, and companies make more money that way, which is why Xenoverse 2 keeps pumping them out. Sometimes there's really great DLC that is actually worth buying, and other times it's absolutely pointless because the base game was so bare bones that it should have just been included when the game launched. Whether you love or hate DLC though, you just need to expect it with every new game that comes out nowadays, because it's actually harder to find games without it, and Tenkaichi 4 will most likely have it. I'd love it if Tenkaichi 4 released with everything as part of the base game, but I don't see that happening, and I also don't see the game bringing back every character from Tenkaichi 3 right from the get-go. If anything, Bandai Namco will probably keep most of the Dragon Ball Z story arcs as part of the base game, and everything from Raditz up until Kid Buu will be included at launch. Everything else though, like the original Dragon Ball characters, all of the Dragon Ball GT characters, and even the movie characters, both heroes and villains, they would all be DLC, and right there, Bandai Namco already has 3 DLC packs that it could sell separately from the game, and maybe even include as pre-order bonuses if they really wanted to. Obviously, Tenkaichi 4 will have more of a focus on Dragon Ball Super because it didn't exist when Tenkaichi 3 came out, so rather than focusing on the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball GT like Tenkaichi 3 did, I could see Tenkaichi 4 revolving solely around Dragon Ball Z and Super, and that way the game doesn't rush through each of those story arcs and could save everything else for DLC. So of course, let's start things off with Battle of Gods. Of course, you'd have new characters like Beerus and Whis, but you'd also have to include Goku's Super Saiyan God transformation, which brings up the idea of having multiple versions of the same character. In Tenkaichi 3, we had different versions of Goku like Goku Early, Goku Mid, Goku End, and even Goku GT, which were all different versions of Goku but with different transformations and different movesets. They could do the same thing in Tenkaichi 4 where they have DBS versions of the main characters, because every single character has gotten new moves, new transformations, and new outfits that would require them making a new version of the same character. But maybe they could change that and give us a way to customize our characters, allowing us to pick and choose what moves we want in our skill set, and then that way we wouldn't have 20 plus versions of Goku on the roster. Regardless of what they decide to do with that system, those are really the only 3 characters that we could get out of Battle of Gods. Beerus and Whis would be brand new characters with entirely new movesets, whereas Super Saiyan God Goku would be a new transformation with some different moves throughout the form's history. Being able to use the Godbind technique on Beerus, that would be really cool. But moving away from Battle of Gods, we move into Resurrection F, and this story arc offers a few more characters and plenty more transformations. Of course, we'd get characters like Super Saiyan Blue Goku, Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, and Golden Frieza, with the two Saiyans being given their Whis outfits as alternate costumes. Aside from those three, Jocko would be a fan favorite choice, and if Bandai Namco wants to do what Tenkaichi 3 did, where we have side characters be included, I'd love to see Sorbet, Tagoma, and even Shizami. Next, there's the Universe 6 tournament arc, where we would see several more characters and forms, including everybody from Universe 6. Champa and Vados would be included, with their movesets being pretty similar to both Beerus and Whis, and then we'd see Botamo, Magetta, Frost, Kaba, and especially Hit. Frost and Kaba would both be the only ones with transformations, with Frost having access to his first, second, third, fourth, and 100% full power forms, even though we saw that last one during the Tournament of Power, and then Kaba would be able to go Super Saiyan, and would later unlock Super Saiyan 2 during the TOP as well. Hit would be a standout character from Universe 6, mostly because of his time skip, but of course, you can't include characters from this arc without having Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku be one of them. In previous Tenkaichi games, Kaioken was just a quick power-up technique that Goku could use, but it only lasted a few seconds. In Tenkaichi 4, I want all the different versions of Kaioken to be playable characters, so then I could actually enjoy them for a full match. And of course, we can't forget Monaka, but he'd probably be more of a joke character, kinda like Mr. Satan, and joke characters are some of the best aspects of the older DBZ games, so they definitely need to bring those back. Finally, before we move on, I think it'd be important to incorporate Copy Vegeta into the game in some shape or form. Maybe don't have him be his own character though, but he could easily be an alternate costume for Vegeta, and then that way we could get regular Super Saiyan Copy Vegeta or even Super Saiyan God Copy Vegeta. Now let's talk about the Goku Black arc, specifically the anime version of the arc, because I'll talk about the DBS manga later in the video. For now though, there's obvious picks for characters from this arc. We'd get Future Trunks back, who comes packaged alongside new forms like Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan Rage, and maybe even Spirit Bomb Super Saiyan, but I'd be fine if that just gets included as an ultimate move. Then there's Goku Black and all of his transformations, with Super Saiyan Rose being the most prominent. We'd get Zamasu, and the two could fuse into Merge Zamasu, and then in addition to that fusion, we'd get the corrupted version of Merge Zamasu, who would be a little bit bigger, kinda like how Dr. Wheelo was a bit bigger, but he wasn't giant in Tenkaichi 3. And not to mention, we'd no doubt get Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, who would come complete with his super cool ultimate move, the final Kamehameha. All in all, the Goku Black arc has a few new characters, some new fusions, and a lot of transformations tacked onto some older characters that could help flesh out their movesets. I also didn't mention Goku Black's Super Saiyan form in the manga, but like I said, I'll talk about the manga later in the video. Before we get to that though, we have to talk about the Tournament of Power, and that's a whole can of worms on its own. Unsurprisingly, the tournament is filled with dozens of irrelevant characters that only serve as fodder for the main characters of the arc, and while it would be cool to see them all get fleshed out in Tenkaichi 4, I don't think we'll be seeing every single person from every single universe. Instead, we'll likely just get big names from the tournament like Universe 11, including Jiren, Topo, and Dispo, with some of them receiving their powered up forms and their God of Destruction forms, and we'll also see more fighters from Universe 6, including Caulifla, Kale, all of their forms, plus their fusion Kefla, and maybe we could see a few more of the notable fighters like Bergamo, Basil, and Lavender from Universe 9, and Ani Laza from Universe 3, who could be really fun since he'd be one of those giant characters. As for Universe 7, Ultra Instinct Sign and Mastered Ultra Instinct Goku are both no-brainers, and obviously we'll also get Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta. On top of those three, maybe we'd probably get Android 17's Ranger outfit as an alternate costume for his Android Saga character, unless if they decide to recreate 17 and make him a new character entirely, which is also possible. But now, here's the fun thing that Tenkaichi 4 could do. Since we kind of see them fight against Beerus in the manga, maybe we could get all 12 Gods of Destruction as playable characters with each of them having fleshed out movesets. That would be incredibly fun, and since we're getting crazy, maybe Zeno and the Grand Priest could also be playable. It wouldn't make sense, but I'm sure we would all want to have Yamcha fight Zeno at least once. Then of course, let's talk about the Dragon Ball Super movies, which I'm hoping that Bandai keeps in the base game and doesn't make DLC. First up is Dragon Ball Super Broly, and surprise surprise, Broly would be included in the game alongside all of his forms. His Akari form would be a really fun addition because it's one of those things that keeps him unique from his Z counterpart. Then alongside Broly, it would be fun to play as Chilai and Lemmo, with the two of them being those down-to-earth type fighters that don't use ki, like Videl and Yajirobe. Then, Vegeta would without a doubt get his Super Saiyan God transformation, and of course, we can't forget Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta, who depending on if you have the DLC for the DBZ movies, maybe he'd be an additional transformation to that Gogeta, or they could do a different character slot, or some sort of amalgamation where base form and Blue Gogeta are in the base game, but Super Saiyan is DLC attached to the DBZ movies. I'm not sure how they'd want to structure that. As for Dragon Ball Super Superhero, there's plenty of new characters that we could see like Gamma 1, Gamma 2, maybe even Dr. Hedo and Magenta, who could both be more of those fighters that don't use ki, and then of course we'd get Cell Max as one of those giant characters like Hirudegarn or the Great Apes. I'd also like to see this version of Pan be playable, and of course we can't forget the transformations of our two main characters, Gohan and Piccolo. Gohan would get Gohan Beast, and the Special Beam Cannon would be his ultimate move, and Piccolo gets both his Potential Unleashed form as well as his Orange Piccolo form. However, I don't think we should stop there. On top of the standard Orange form, I think Piccolo should get another character slot where his Orange form is giant just like Cell Max. Maybe he'd have a few different moves, but if not, I think it'd be a cool gimmick to have a big Piccolo. And that sort of brings me to the end of characters that I think will show up in the base game. Everything from DBZ from Raditz to Kid Buu, and then from Dragon Ball Super ranging from Beerus up until Superhero, that's all that I see them including in the base game, because that's all that's been included in the anime. However, and let me just say that this is me having wishful thinking, I would love it if at some point Tenkaichi 4 included DBS manga characters as a DLC pack. Characters like Super Saiyan Goku Black, Moro and all of his forms, 7-3, Goku's giant Ki avatar, Granola, the Heaters, Black Frieza, and even Ultra Ego Vegeta. I want them all to get some sort of representation in the game, and if it has to be through DLC, then I'd be perfectly fine dropping a few dollars to play as them and going through the Moro and Granola arcs that way. And think about it, some of these characters have some pretty cool gimmicks, like Goku's Ki avatar is another giant character that could go up against Cell Max and Orange Piccolo, and then Ultra Ego Vegeta could get stronger the lower his health bar is. In fact, a lot of these new DBS characters have gimmicks behind them that I would love to see be explored in their movesets. Regardless, that's all my thoughts on Dragon Ball Super, but I'm not finished. There's a few other characters that I want to see be added, mostly because we haven't seen them in other Dragon Ball games, so now would be the perfect time to bring them in. Toward the start of the video, I mentioned that Tenkaichi 4 would most likely have the old movie characters from DBZ be included as DLC, and I think to go alongside that idea, Tenkaichi 4 should include other characters and forms that weren't in previous Tenkaichi games, kinda like filler packs or non-canon packs. Some of them have been in other games though, like Raging Blast 2, but that's about it. I want to see characters like Fault Super Saiyan Goku, Super Kaioken Goku, Tarbell, Abo and Kato and their fusion Akka, Hachiyak, Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, Super Saiyan 3 Broly, and even video game exclusive characters like Android 21 in her Majin form, Majin Ozoto, and let's just have Tenkaichi 4 be as wild as all those Tenkaichi 3 mods. I don't have any clue what Bandai's gonna do or how many DLC packs they're gonna want to release, but if they want to make more money and have this be the biggest Dragon Ball game ever, they could pull a Xenoverse 2 and keep releasing DLC after DLC and keep pumping up the roster. I know that many people won't like that, but they'll still buy them. With DLC, people can pick and choose what they buy, so if they want to get all the Dragon Ball GT characters, but they don't want to buy, let's say there's a Dragon Ball Heroes pack, they don't have to buy both. And I don't care what needs to be done, I just want to see Fault Super Saiyan and Super Kaioken. Those two forms need representation, and there's no better time to do it than in Tenkaichi 4. And with that, that was my complete character wish list for Budokai Tenkaichi 4. It's a lot of characters, but truth be told, Dragon Ball is a big franchise, there's a lot of characters and forms, and to follow up a game like Budokai Tenkaichi 3, it's understandable that fans are going to have some pretty high expectations. So with that in mind, what kind of characters do you want to see in the game? What kind of transformations do you want? Let me know down in the comments and let's talk about it. Thank you all so much for watching today's video, and if you enjoyed it, do me a huge favor and smash that thumbs up button. If you want to see more Dragon Ball videos like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because I have a lot more content planned that you will absolutely love. Until then, I'll be seeing all you Dragon Ball fans later. See ya!